Good afternoon, student. Today I will be talking about mechanical ventilation. Mechanical ventilation is, first of all, you have to just understand the difference between a normal ventilation and a ventilation given by a ventilator. What is ventilation? Ventilation means movement of air in and out of the lungs. That is ventilation. Okay. Respiration is exchange of gases that happens at tissue level. That is respiration. Okay. So ventilation is one of the component of respiration. So what happens in normal respiration? There will be contraction of your diaphragm. Okay. So diaphragm used to contract. Okay, like this used to contract, and there is contraction of intercostal muscles, which generates negative intrapleural pressure, and air used to enter in. Okay, this is normal ventilation. So normal ventilation depends on the negative intrapleural pressure, whereas in mechanical ventilation, since the patient does not have power to breathe in the air from atmosphere into the lungs, so therefore we need to have a machine which gives air with a preset rate and preset pressure. That is ventilation by a mechanical ventilator. Okay, so this is the major difference between mechanical ventilation and normal ventilation. So normal ventilation is negative pressure ventilation, whereas mechanical ventilation is a positive pressure ventilation, where positive pressure is given by the machine. Okay, so this is the basic difference. Now before moving on to the ventilation, I would like to tell you why, how the respiration, how the ventilation happens, and what are the different type of diseases. So ventilation means we have to open up the alveoli. Okay, so imagine an alveoli like a balloon. Okay, like this is a balloon. I hope all of you have blown up a balloon. So when we blow a balloon, initially we need to require more pressure to initiate or to move the air into the balloon. Okay, so in initial part we need to put more pressure. After a certain limit, we just need to blow it and it is going to blow up. Okay, so at that time again, if you blow beyond the limit, then it is going to burst out. The same thing happens when we open an alveoli. Initially, when we have to start the ventilation, we need to have more pressure. Why it requires more pressure? Because you have to overcome the resistance which is offered by the airways, and then whatever inflammatory material is there in the alveoli, you have to displace that material by air. Okay, so you need pressure to overcome this resistance and to overcome this compliance issue which is there. Okay, so to overcome all these things, we need to have more pressure. But once it is opened up, you just need to require minimum pressure to optimize this. Okay, for example, initially you need more pressure to open it. Once it is open, it will now blow very easily. Okay, this is the normal opening and closure of alveoli. So now again, before it closes off, we need to have a pressure which can keep it open. So the pressure which requires to open the lung is called peak inspiratory pressure. The pressure which requires to retain this alveoli in the same position is called peak expiratory pressure. And one more pressure is there which remains in the lungs for ventilation is called peak plateau pressure. For example, this is the graph. We need a pressure to initiate the lung, then we need a plateau pressure, and then this pressure. So this is, when we see this graph, this is your peak, this is your peak inspiratory pressure, and this is your peak plateau pressure. Correct? So we need to have more pressure to initiate breathing. Then we need to have optimum pressure for the airflow to have an optimum amount of alveoli to open up. And then we need a pressure at the time of expiration to prevent this alveoli from collapse. If we don't put a proper peak, it is going to collapse. Inspiration mein air has come in, but during expiration again it will be collapsed. In the next cycle, again you need that same amount of pressure to open it up. Okay, so lot of pressure variation is there, and alveoli, what we want, that alveoli should be recruited well, should be opened well, that purpose will not be solved. That is why we need to initiate with little bit more pressure and then we need to ventilate with an optimum pressure. Now how do we decide that optimum pressure, what is speed, how much VIP is required? I will tell you in the coming lecture. Okay. Now you see the pressure ventilation curve first. This is your pressure and this is your ventilation. So initially we need more pressure. Okay, initially we need to have more pressure to initiate the breathing. Later on, so this is your safe zone of respiration. Later on you need very minimal pressure change. Okay? The pressure change in middle wale cycle is very less. Then again beyond this point, if you increase the pressure, alveoli is going to burst. So we don't want this, we don't want this. We want ventilation to happen in this safe zone. Okay. So ventilation should happen in this safe zone. So this is called safe zone of ventilation. Okay. This is a very important thing which I will keep revising you in the coming classes. Okay. Now coming to the ventilation. Before ventilation, first of all, when we need to put the baby on ventilator, I don't think there is some standard or fixed protocol. We just know that when the patient is not breathing or when the effort is too much that if we don't initiate some support, child is going to get exhausted and it is going to hamper its circulation and child is going to suffer. So before that point happens, we need to ventilate the child. So on ABGA we have defined certain parameters. On the basis of that we think that this patient is going to need ventilation. What are those parameters? First indication is respiratory failure, very important. Baby's child is not breathing only. Okay, so that is one indication when the child is completely apneic. Second is when your PO2 is less than 60, that is hypoxemia. Okay, when your PCO2 is more than 50, there is hypercarbia. Okay, when there is severe metabolic acidosis, your pH is less than 1.15, or when the child is in shock, refractory shock. Okay, refractory seizure. We want to take over the ventilation part. We want to just give support to the ventilation so that our other organ system should not be failed. The most important objective of ventilation is to prevent hypoxemia, because this hypoxemia is going to affect all your organ system. It is not just whatever may be the reason of hypoxia, it is going to affect your kidney, it is going to affect your brain, it is going to affect your heart. So we don't want any of the consequences of hypoxemia to happen. That's why we are going to initiate the ventilation, irrespective of underlying etiology. What is the etiology, we don't know. What we are worried about is hypoxemia should not happen. So this is the strongest reason for ventilation. Okay, now coming to we are talking about invasive ventilation. Non-invasive ventilation, I will take the class in my next session. Okay. Now when we initiate ventilation, we need to think of three things. Okay. First thing, which mode I am supposed to choose. Okay. What are the settings which I am going to decide, and then cycling. Okay. Fine. So there are few basic modes which I am telling you. One is intermittent mandatory ventilation. Second is synchronized intermittent mandatory ventilation. Third is pressure support ventilation, or you can now, this one is replaced by pressure controlled ventilation or volume controlled ventilation. What is pressure control and what is volume control? Pressure control means we have fixed the pressure. Okay, so at this your pressure is fixed, you can fix the rate and you can fix the PV. So at fixed pressure we are going to deliver the gas into the alveoli. In pressure control your pressure is fixed. So when my pressure is fixed, I am supposed to decide PIP, I am supposed to decide P, I am supposed to decide rate. But volume is varying. So how much volume is going into the lung in each cycle, I am not sure. It varies. Similarly, in volume control ventilation, we decide volume, a fixed volume, that is tidal volume. Then P we are going to fix, rate we are going to fix. Pressure changes we don't know. Okay, and most of the time what is being seen in children, because children lung is a heterogeneous lung. It's a heterogeneous lung. somewhere the alveoli are developing, somewhere the airways is small, somewhere airways large. So because of this heterogeneity, it's better to put the child on pressure control mode. Why? The reason being, if I put the patient on volume control mode, volume is fixed, but the pressure changes are very much variable. At times the pressure is less, at times the pressure is more, and it is going to cause more and more alveolar damage. Barotrauma will be more. Whereas if I fix the pressure, which means the pressure will not be beyond that. So volume changes, okay, can be acceptable as far as alveolar damage is concerned, because that volume change also you can vary with your pressure changes. I'll tell you later. But with the pressure ventilation, a heterogeneous lungs responds in a better way as compared to a volume control ventilation. So overall, in children and infant, volume control ventilation is better than pressure control ventilation. Okay, sorry, pressure control ventilation is better than volume control ventilation. When do you need to put the child on pressure control mode? When the child has come to you in an emergency and child has got a very bad lung. If at this point, if I choose a synchronized mode or pressure support mode, I am going to support each and every breath, but the child will end up into fatigue, because we want child to give some rest, we don't want energy to be waste on the that muscles which are working already more, which are already exhausted. So we want to save our ATP. Okay, so instead of wasting my ATP there, I would like to waste those ATP into the recovery of the disease. That is why we want to give rest to the lung, we want to give rest to the heart. So for that purpose, basically we put the patient on pressure control ventilation, but at the same time we need to paralyze the child. This is very important. If you don't paralyze the child and if you put the child on pressure control mode, it is going to cause more harm. Why? I'll tell you. Because in pressure control ventilation, we set a fixed rate of 40. It is like a Hitler. It has fixed the rate. You fix the rate of 60. You fix the pressure of suppose 20. You fix the PEEP of 50. In between, if you don't paralyze the child will be keep breathing here. Again you give a rate. Suppose before your mechanical ventilation expiration cycle over, child will again initiate its own breath. Okay. So there is lot of asynchrony between the patient efforts and the ventilator effort. So because of this asynchrony, when the child wants to exhale, ventilator is giving breath in. When the child wants to inspire, the ventilator is in resting phase. So that is why, because of this disharmony, because of asynchrony between the machine and the patient, again there will be lot of confusion in the child, the respiration pattern, and the child will end up into arrest. He might be in failure, now he will end up into arrest. So we don't want that asynchrony to happen. The purpose was to ventilate the lung, the purpose was to support the lung. But what we are doing? We are actually harming the lung. We are producing more asynchrony, and this is the cause why when we put the baby on ventilator and they go into shock. Because the child was in failure, the child was already in failure, you have already given stress to the already stressed lung, child will end up into complications. So that is why, to avoid this, if you are putting the baby on PCV mode, better to paralyze the child, take over the ventilation completely. When we put the child on pressure control mode, when we paralyze the patient effort, now we can see the proper graphics in the lung. Now we can see what is the volume change with this pressure. See, I have put a pressure of 30. How much volume the child is generating? Okay, that we see on the monitor. Suppose in the monitor we set PIP, speed, rate, FiO2 we set. Here in the monitor we see the values, measured value. So measured volume, how much at this pressure, how much volume the ventilator is getting, or how much volume the baby is getting. That we see on the monitor. That is called measured volume. For example, if you have set a pressure of 30 and weight of the baby is 10 kg. So what should be the tidal volume that the baby should get? If you calculate, it should be 4 to 6 ml per kg. So 4 to 6, if we take 5, okay. So mean is 5. So 50. At least the child should get 50 ml of air in each cycle. So here we should see a value of 50 ml. It should, because it is not a volume control mode. So this will not be fixed. It will be varying from 40 to 60. It is acceptable. But when it is going beyond that, you need to decrease your PIP. If the measured volume going less than 40, which means it is 30, which means my PIP is less than what is required. You can further go on PIP. Suppose initially you have set a PIP of 20, you can go up to 22, 24, 25. Beyond that, even if it is not rising, then stop it here. Don't jump into, don't just go on increasing PIP, because we have other parameters also which need to set. Okay, so as far as ventilation is concerned, we cannot work on single parameter. We need to work on many other parameters. Okay, so once I have set the PIP of 25 or 26, I have seen that tidal volume is not varying much. It is just from 30, it has gone to 35. Okay, I will stop here. Okay, better to work on some other parameter. What next I am supposed to do? See, one thing I want to tell you, there is something called mean airway pressure. What is that mean airway pressure? Overall, to improve this tidal volume, to improve my gases on ABG, we have to increase the MAP. So that MAP, PIP is only one parameter which is going to increase your MAP. There are other parameters also. Now see the other parameters. Suppose this is the graph of MAP. Okay, so in this MAP, this is your flow rate. So you can increase the flow rate. Okay, that is in the ventilator, you can increase the flow from 2, 4, 5, 6 like that you can do. Now this is your PIP. We don't work on this more. This is your PIP. What is mean airway pressure? Mean airway pressure is area under the curve. So whatever thing which increases the area under this curve is going to increase the MAP. So one thing is PIP, if you increase your PIP, the area under curve will increase. Now what is this? This is TI time, inspiratory time. So if I increase this inspiratory time up to here, if we increase the inspiratory time, more time be available for air or gas exchanges to happen at the alveolo-capillary membrane. Okay, this is your alveolo-capillary membrane which is already dead or damaged. So when we allow more time for inspiration, more time will be available for gas exchange, more gas will be exchanged, and this tidal volume is because alveoli will get open, more and more alveoli are going to happen at this very moment, and then your tidal volume is going to improve, correct? So this is another way of increasing your tidal volume. So the tidal volume which we see on monitor does not only depends on PIP, but it depends on your mean airway pressure. So PIP is one thing which can increase your tidal volume. By increasing, by giving more pressure, you can recruit more alveoli. Second thing is, by increasing inspiratory time, you can open some other alveoli which were also dead or damaged. So by increasing TI time, one more thing you can do is you can decrease the expiratory time. Okay, when you decrease the expiratory time, the CO2 which retained in the lung will move out, and overall area under the curve will improve, and MAP will also improve. Okay, so there are two ways. Either you increase the time for gas exchange at alveolo-capillary membrane, decrease the expiratory time, which is going to help in more air exhalation, okay, or which is going to help in again more retention of air and more exchange at alveolo-capillary membrane. So thereby it is going to improve your mean airway pressure. So overall area under the curve is going to improve by increasing the flow, by increasing the peak inspiratory pressure, by increasing the TI time, or by decreasing your expiratory time. But one disadvantage of decreasing expiratory time is, at times some of the alveoli are going to retain the CO2. That is again going to create problem. Okay, so we don't want that to happen. So this is the last thing which I am supposed to do. Decreasing expiratory time should be the last thing which I am supposed to do. Better is to work on the other parameter, because it is, if I decrease the expiratory time, the CO2 retention will be more, and again there will be a problem. So better to work on other parameter. What should be the other parameter? सबसे पहले you increase the rate, because it is not going to alter your expiratory time. Just increase the rate. You allow more and more number of cycles to happen, and you allow more and more air gas exchanges to happen. So better is to increase the rate, then increase the TI time, and then at last if nothing is working, then you can decrease the expiratory time. Okay, and before that, one more thing which we can do is, we can also increase the peak. Okay, this is your peak. So peak can also be increased. ventilation. Why? Because PEEP is something which is end expiratory, which means at the time of expiration, we better just to understand this diagram. See, this is your normal tidal ventilation. This is your residual volume. This is normal tidal ventilation. This is expiratory reserve volume, and this is residual volume. And this makes your FRC. So in a normal lung, when you are breathing normally, at the end of expiration, whatever gas is left, this gas is called, this gas makes your functional residual capacity. And this functional residual capacity is going to provide you time for exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide at the time of expiration. Because after the expiration, only this amount of gas is left for exchanges. This is very important concept. Why? Because in all the diseases of alveolo-capillary membrane, this FRC is going to reduce, or it may go down to zero. You're not having, you're not, except this small volume, you're having nothing left in the lung at the end of expiration. That is why these children are very, very sensitive to hypoxemia. Okay, because there is no gas exchange during expiration, suddenly the PO2 level falls down and they'll have hypoxia and consequences of hypoxemia. So the FRC which is there in normal lung, the same FRC, the work of FRC is being done by your PEEP. So PEEP is very, very important. This pressure should remain in the lung, which is going to provide air at the time of expiration for exchanges. Okay, so this PEEP is very, very important, and if you increase the PEEP, it is going to improve your mean airway pressure. How it is going to improve your mean airway pressure? By increasing the area under this curve. Okay, and why overall it improves? Because PEEP is something, PIP, P plateau, how much ever you increase, but at the time of expiration, no gas is left. You have not changed the PEEP. Again the alveoli are collapsing. So during expiration, again there will be hypoxemia. So that is why tidal volume is not going to improve unless you work on both the measures. You have to work on inspiratory measures, you have to work on expiratory measures. So what is the thing which is going to provide gases at the time of expiration? That is PEEP. PEEP is a very, very important component. It should be reduced in the last and it should be set in the first. And how do you titrate your PEEP? I will tell you. So I have increased the PIP, I have increased the rate, and one more thing is I have increased the PEEP. So before rate, I think PEEP should be increased first. Okay, and then you can work on rate. So PEEP, how do I decide which PEEP I am supposed to set? This will be decided by looking at the saturation. Okay, for example, I have set the PEEP of 7 or 8. At 7 or 8, the saturation was 85-86. I have increased it to 9, saturation has gone to 89. I have increased it to further, now I am getting saturation of 90 to 92. But if I increase to 11, saturation drops to 89, 88. So, am I supposed to increase it further? No. So, the PEEP is, optimum PEEP is 10. So, I will adjust the PEEP at which I am getting the maximum possible saturation, or acceptable, not maximum possible, it should be an acceptable saturation. So a child who has got ARDS, the acceptable saturation is 90 to 92. So 88 to 92 we can accept. But if I increase it to further 11, saturation is dropping to 88, which means this is the optimal PEEP and I am not supposed to increase it further. Okay, and this process is called optimization of PEEP. So when we put the child on ventilator, first we set the PIP based on tidal volume. If I am not getting much tidal volume with dramatically increasing the PIP, like I have gone from 20, I have gone up to 26, 28, I will work on other parameters like PEEP. I will see the PEEP, I will increase the PEEP to get optimized saturation. Suppose if at 10 I got this saturation of 92 to 92, I will stop here. So now I have got the PIP of 26. I have got the PEEP of 10. So this is my set PIP and this is my set PEEP. Okay. So I have set this. Now I will increase the rate. Maybe acceptable for 10 kg. Maybe I can go up to 60. So if at 50 I am getting with 1:2 IE ratio initially, I will see has gone to 40 ml, which is okay. Okay, which is okay. Since I have said I have chosen pressure control mode and I have paralyzed the patient, so there will no more be variation on tidal volume. There will no more be much variation of tidal volumes because patient is not breathing. Whatever breath the ventilator is giving, that is giving me overall measured tidal volume. Okay, so which means when I set the PIP, when I set the P, when I set the rate, I have got an optimal tidal volume of 40 to 50. So if 40 to 50 tidal volume I have got, I will be fine. I will stop here. So this is my initial setting, PIP of 26, PEEP of 10 and rate of 50. What about FiO2? See, FiO2, the concept of FiO2 is, okay, it is the FiO2 is going to cause barrel trauma, the FiO2 causes this, FiO2 causes that, but no. My main purpose of ventilating a child is to have no, I don't accept hypoxia. So better when you're putting the baby off ventilator, better to increase the FiO2 to 100%. It is not going to cause so much harm at this point. Okay. Why 100% oxygen? Why not 60%? Because the oxygen is not just causing the PO2 rising PO2 level. It is also one of the important factor which is responsible for pulmonary dilatation. And in newborn, in infant, when the lungs are very much damaged, there is slight increase in pulmonary pressures also. So that pulmonary vasodilatation will be caused by oxygen itself. Okay, so in a child with ARDS, in a child with PPHN, don't hesitate in increasing FiO2 initially to 100%. Okay, because this is something which is going to cause pulmonary vasodilatation. This is something which is going to increase the partial pressure of oxygen. So FiO2 is very important factor. Later on, when we are weaning off, first thing we need to wean is FiO2. Why it is so, I'll tell you. Okay, so now I have set the FiO2 of 100%. Now this is my PIP, this is my P, this is my rate. So this is my initial setting. This was the pressure control ventilation. Okay, now I am supposed to wean the child. For example, how do I decide to wean the child? At the same time, when I am changing the mode, when I am changing everything, I will be keep seeing the lung graphics. This is pressure volume curve. It was flattened initially. The more pressure is required to open up, this is volume, this is pressure. The more pressure is required to open the lung. Now the pressure requirement is very less to increase the volume. Okay, so it has, my curve is shifted here, which means the lungs are improving. On the other side, very simple, better than this. Look at the tidal volume. When at 26 pressure, tidal volume is 40. After 6 hours or after maybe after 8-9 hours, this tidal volume is gone to 60. Which means what? Alveoli are, sufficient number of alveoli are opened up. Tidal volume has gone up, which means this is the point where I need to wean the patient. Okay, so what I am supposed to do? Usually in ARDS patient this doesn't happen so suddenly. It takes 24 to 48 hours. At the same time, when we are doing all this, we need to work on other parameters. Why I have decided to ventilate the baby. So I have to decide what was the cause and I have to simultaneously treat all those things. So thinking in mind that I have done everything correctly and child is improving. Now at this point when tidal volume is improving, when your curves are improving, I need to decide when your X-ray is also improving, when chest expansion is looking good, when patient is looking good, vital parameters are improving, we are supposed to wean the child. First thing is, what I am supposed to do is, I will first reduce the FiO2. Why I need to reduce the FiO2? And one more thing, you can also stop the paralytic agent. Initially we have put the paralytic agent to give sufficient rest to the lungs. Now when I decided that sufficient ventilation has been done, child has improved, I can stop the paralytic agent, I can stop the sedation. So this is the first thing I am supposed to do. Next thing is, I can change the mode. I had initially put the patient on PCV mode. Now we can put the patient on PCV, SIMV plus PSV mode. What is SIMV and PSV mode? SIMV and PSV mode is, SIMV is synchronized intermittent mandatory ventilation. Okay, this synchronizes with the patient effort. How does it synchronizes with the patient's effort? We'll tell in the weaning part later. I'll just tell you what is SIMV and what is PCV first, before going to further detailing about weaning process. Okay, because this is also equally important. SIMV is synchronized, which means it is synchronized with the patient efforts. So how does the ventilator know that I am supposed to deliver a breath? This is usually triggered by something. So what is trigger? Trigger is something which initiates breathing. Okay. For example, in some ventilation we set flow. Flow as a trigger. So whenever the child starts breathing, so there is a flow change. So that flow change the ventilation used to assess and it used to deliver its breath. So this is called flow triggered ventilation. There can be time triggering. Time triggering matlab you can put a trigger of time. Okay, time triggering. You can put a time trigger of 0.1 or 0.2 second. Which means ventilation is going to wait for 0.1 to 0.2 seconds. If it does not initiate any, the patient does not initiate its breathing, the ventilator is going to deliver its breath. Okay, so this is called triggering. So there can be time triggering, flow triggering. Why trigger is important? Because here we want to wean the child. We want the patient to breathe. And how do we know the patient is breathing? By its flow. Okay, so flow trigger is better. You can just see that ventilator will trigger once there is flow change, or once the patient initiate breathing, the ventilator is going to deliver its breath. This is called flow triggering. Okay. Now, when you are weaning the patient, you need to increase the trigger. Okay, and you don't want any kind of effort from patient side, or you want to give complete rest to the patient, you can decrease the trigger to 0. Okay, so here we are weaning the patient, so we can increase the trigger to certain 0.1 to 0.2 seconds, so that I can, or we can reduce the flow alert trigger, so that even small amount of flow, small amount of initiation, the ventilator is able to pick it up. Okay, so this is flow, the trigger which is going to initiate the ventilation. And what is cycling? Cycle is something which is going to end the ventilation. So flow trigger is which initiates ventilation, and cycle is which ends ventilation. It can be a time cycle, it can be a pressure cycle. Pressure cycle means when a desired amount of pressure is delivered, the ventilator is going to terminate its breath. Or time cycle matlab when at specific time the desired volume is delivered, the patient is going to stop the breathing. So in pressure cycle, it is fixed pressure which is delivered. In time cycle, it is the time frame in which whatever volume the patient the ventilator wanted to deliver, it's delivered. After that certain time, the ventilator is going to terminate the breath. So cycle is, just remember, cycle is something which terminates the ventilation, and triggering is something which initiates the ventilation. So which can trigger it? The time you can put a time trigger, you can put a flow trigger.